Why is that so powerful?
What is it going to take from you? And that's what's going to make you stand out compared to your competitors.
They were just inundated like ads. Biggest ad campaign you've ever worked on.
Over the 6 figures for just a month.
Woo! I'm like, if you don't do it consistently, is there a point?
Here's my business card. Contact me.
This one.
We're always on top of like these trends, and we just try to make cool things.
Advertising and marketing goes.
Everyone has to realize radio is the one thing that's free in your car. You're not paying for it.
Do you remember like Firefox?
Like our old family realtor, he's been in the business for 40 years. He doesn't even have a website.
Oh, there's like no other person in the world with your last name.
You'll never hear from me again. I'll never hear from you, and that's it.
From wine country to cottage country, real estate is all about lifestyle. I'm Andrew Perry, and welcome to That Fine.
Welcome back to another episode of That Fine Life podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Perry. This is the podcast where we interview realtors, entrepreneurs, business owners, and those making waves in the industry that they're in. My guest here is Nick Jongazma.
That's it.
Wait, but you're not Italian.
I'm not, but it's okay. We'll go with the Jongazma. I like it. It's nice.
Well, you know what? Because I got introduced to you, you through Nick Regina.
Of course.
Right? So
he's like the mayor of Italy. he's the poster child when you think of Italy. So
yeah, exactly.
He's good.
And,
solid guy.
Oh my God! And the first time I was on his podcast, actually the first person to be on all of his podcasts.
Wow.
One in Florida, the new one at his new office.
You're doing a tour,
right? Yeah, exactly. I was following him around. But our first podcast together, we didn't talk about business because all I wanted to talk about is like, what's it like being married to an Italian?
Yeah.
Oh, God. So I was open and honest and gotten shit for 3 months.
That's good.
But anyways, so I appreciate you coming all the way down from downtown Toronto.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you for having us.
You got a lot going on. The reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because in our line of work, there's for one, it's so interesting because realtors, they get so caught up, and even tons of businesses these days, right? They get so caught up in digital marketing.
Yep. Which
you do as well.
We do. We dabble a little bit into it.
And
we try to stay more into the traditional side of things, but yeah.
Right. But it's interesting. So I live in Niagara on the Lake, and there's no billboards allowed. There's no bus. There's no garbage cans, nothing. We all have what's called build form. So even the McDonald's couldn't have their sign. It had to be like on like this garden thing, right?
Yeah.
So
you gotta get creative with it. So.
Exactly. You had to get creative. So what we do is we have a town of 14,000 people, and we have 3 newspapers. And if you're not in at least 2 of them, your business is probably going to fail.
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of kick that off. Like, when did you start? So you're the owner of AdsWorld.
I'm the owner of AdsWorld.
So when did that start, and why the hell in today's day and age did you say, you know what, I'm going to start a traditional advertising company?
So this actually all started when I was in high school. I wasn't actually supposed to go into this route at all. I was supposed to become a chef because my dad was a chef.
Yes.
And it was my passion growing up, and tried to get into the program, and there's too many people in the program, so I kind of got booted out. And at the time I was DJing, and I thought, you know what, radio was cool, because I actually went to school for radio broadcasting and journalism.
Where?
At Seneca, York. York, yeah. Nice. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this program for a little bit, see how I like it, and then eventually I'll switch out of it and I'll go into like culinary arts or whatever the case is. I ended up doing it for 1 semester. I ended up loving it, and I thought I was going to be the next like on-air host, and I wanted to go into like becoming like a whole like personality and all this stuff. And eventually, like doing the program, graduated. I got an internship at a radio station in Toronto called Z1035.
Yes, of course. DJ Danny D,
Tony Monaco, all those guys. So they were there.
What I was trying to think of.
So I was there for a couple months doing an internship, and after realizing, okay, you know what, this is something that I really like to do. The money wasn't there, and I thought, you know what, I want to go into the sales side of things. So I actually started, 0 sales experience, by the way, like nothing. Like I think I was 18, 19 years old, no sales experience at all. I had a manager meeting with my manager at the time. And he's like, okay, why should I hire you? And I tried to like bullshit him, like, oh, you know, with the right guidance. Can we swear actually on this?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
So I had a meeting with him. He's like, oh, listen, you know, I don't know if you're a great fit. I think you should go and come back just because I don't think you have the sales experience. Yeah. So I left, came back 3-4 months again. He's like, listen, I don't know if you're still a great fit just because you have no experience. And we actually have a seminar coming up in the next couple months. Why don't you come be a part of the seminar, try to bring people to this meeting. And if you sell something, maybe, you know, we'll consider it. Maybe we'll put you in like a junior position. Yeah. I ended up going through my whole Rolodex of clients, like people I've known for years. Like, and mind you, I was only 18, 19 years old, so there's only so many years I've known these guys.
Yeah.
So I've reached out to guys that used to do stuff on my cars or like meeting people at a club. I ended up bringing, I think, 25 people to this seminar. And from the 25 people, 3 of them signed. I think I closed 110K in my first week, just being there with zero experience. So the manager came to my last meeting, met with my client and said, listen, do you think, like, sign the contract, whatever. The guy's like, listen, the only reason I'm signing this is because of Nick. Right after he signed, he's like, do you think I should hire you? I'm like, it's up to you. I got hired. I did that for about 3.5 years. And I've worked with small businesses, big businesses. There's a lot of experiences, learning curves from it. And it came to a point where I just didn't want to sell just that one radio station because we were having issues with clients wanting to buy it. There was only one power station.
Yeah.
And I wanted to offer more. So I ended up leaving. I think this was about 5 years ago, actually, coming up this November, 5 years.
Oh, wow. Holy smokes.
So, yeah, so it's been quite some time now. So I left. I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to start my own little radio agency and just deal with clients and just sell all these radio stations. I said, okay, you know what? Maybe let's add the billboards, let's add the cinema, let's add the buses, the TVs. And then it kind of just started to roll together, and we've been doing it for 5 years.
That's
and
amazing.
It's been something that's been working, and the angle that we try to come off of is not your traditional advertising agency. We try to push boundaries and limits, and it's been working.
So then who's doing, are you finding the ad spaces as well as helping with the design and concepts?
So we're a full service ad agency. So we'll find the space for you. We'll put the creative together for you. We'll design it for you. We'll execute the content for you. So pretty much everything from A to Z we do.
Wow.
Hence why it's called Ads World ADZ. So everything from A to Z is what we do. So from the process of finding a location that makes sense to the creative to the final effects to everything we handle.
So speaking of, finding the right areas, that makes sense for your clients. Where's like kind of the craziest spot, like a client is, you've actually locked somebody in?
So we did a campaign, I think just about a year ago at Times Square.
Yeah.
It was a music client. They wanted to do a massive like 2-3 day campaign. And it was just a crazy location. And it was probably like one of the first times I sold. And the client was extremely ecstatic about it. They're happy. It was a massive billboard. And yeah, it was just like on a status symbol, a status campaign, and it worked out. But more local stuff, Dundas Square is obviously a big one.
Yeah.
I sell a lot of advertisements and campaigns at the square.
Yep.
And it works. It's if you want to really make an impression in the city, if you're just really looking for that picture to post on Instagram, it's the best spot to be. And it's not as expensive as people think it is either. So
right. Well, because I mean, if you're, for example, an artist and you're doing well and you have a good following, that even just posting that on your own social, without it being photoshopped is a big thing, right? Yeah. So, I mean, because I used to, I was in the music industry as well. We played the Dundas Square a couple of times, and we played with like Carl Wolf. So I know he had his whole face there just promoting that concert. So it was pretty cool, pretty moving. So now you said cinema too. I thought about that, and tell me if I'm wrong. So is this like you're selling ad space like before the movie starts?
Exactly. So let's
Why is that so powerful?
So depending on the movie, like let's say Fast and Furious is coming to theaters, obviously you're going to get a lot of people viewing it. It's a good time to target, and depending on what industry you're in. A lot of success that I've had with ads right before a movie is restaurants. Restaurants love it, especially with certain locations. It just makes the most sense. They see a lot of return from it, and they can run their cool commercials from it, and it just makes sense, especially if they want to target specific areas. So if you have, let's say, a restaurant in North York, let's say, and you want to run a campaign at a specific movie theater, it just makes sense. It's actually not as expensive as people think, and you can actually target a bunch of different movies and still be within that budget cap and not spending crazy money. Like, everyone thinks advertising is super, super expensive. If you just know where to advertise and how to sort of stretch your dollars, you can get a lot for what you're spending.
Yeah.
And billboards are not $20,000-$30,000 like people think they are. You can get a billboard for like $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So it all depends who you're obviously working with and what locations and where you're looking at. So I think the biggest part about Oswald was to educate people and kind of let them know, like, listen, this billboard can be purchased for this price. You know what? You can do this campaign for this price. It doesn't always need to be anything that crazy, and kind of start slow and then work your way up.
So if somebody has a smaller budget and they're looking, I mean, where you obviously you can't come up with like something without like an actual case study, or maybe you have one, but how do you break from the noise of just a traditional billboard without like, how do you make an impact is what I'm trying to say. Because if you're not doing, in my line of work, the reason why I never did it is, for one, in my direct town that I sell in, we're not allowed.
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, if you don't do it consistently, is there a point?
That's the other thing. If someone comes to me with a budget for, let's say, $1,000 and they're like, we want to do a billboard, I won't sell it to them.
No.
Because I'm not a kind of person, I always say this, I'm not a transactional person. I actually want the thing to work for them. I won't just take your money just for the sake of taking your money. I'll tell you, listen, keep it, spend it towards this. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm also out of the box. I won't tell you, let's just do an out of your face up with you crossing your arms saying best real estate agent, because that's not going to work.
No.
So if your market, let's say, or in this area is known for being, let's say, this kind of way and this trend, I would go with that trend and I try to promote that and put you into that realm versus just saying, hey, listen, my name's Andrew, I'm the real estate agent, contact me, because that will never work. The other thing is consistency. You got to be consistent. You got to have a plan. There's two types of different advertising. There's one advertising for branding and there's one for selling. What are we trying to do? Are you trying to brand yourself or are you trying to get a sale from it? Because if you're coming to me and your whole mission is to sell and you have no brand, again, it doesn't make sense to do this.
Yeah.
Why are we spending this money? Because you're not going to get a sale right away. So let's think a little bit long term. And this is why I like to sit down with my clients and say, okay, just like you guys as realtors love to sit down with your clients and explain to them, listen, these are the best options for you. Same thing. I'll tell you, listen, we need to run a campaign for 6 months minimum. And it's not a selling tactic. It's just like, this is what's going to work. Mm-hmm. If you want a selling tactic, okay, let's do 2 months. You'll never hear from me again. I'll never hear from you. And that's it. You know, I'll reach out to you during Christmas time. I'll say happy holidays and call it a day. But that's essentially where my angle comes from. And obviously been doing this for close to 10 years now. I know what businesses make the most sense, what don't, what kind of budgets you need for what kind of industries. And that's obviously where I tell them, okay, you know what, let's do this, let's do that. And that's what my clients appreciate. And that's how I've maintained all these clients over the past years.
Right. So they're seeing, value from it. It's the same as, we used to do a lot of digital advertising and like not as crazy as some other realtors, but we felt that over the last few years, I think COVID was the big thing where everybody was at home and they were just inundated like ads. And now it's like they're just like almost stepping away from digital advertisements. Like they're just swiping out. They're not even reading it. So we actually canceled it and doubled down on more like we did. We went to more events and then we went to more like trying to get creative in the newspaper.
That's good.
How can we do that? Because every other brokerage, and we do this too, we mix it up, but every other brokerage would just have listing, 123 Main Street, this one, and it was just a way to satisfy their sellers, really. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily...
They're not advertising for the sake of actually advertising for themselves. It's just to show the client, okay, you know what, this is what we promised you, we did it, look.
Yeah.
And I get clients like that all the time. We're like, oh, well, we need to do this billboard just to show this client that we're doing this. And the property doesn't sell. They're out this money. And again, it goes back to building your brand. If you have this solid brand, you don't need to do these things because you have this whole concept of, okay, this is my plan for the next year. This is what I need to do. And you got to get creative. Everyone's a real estate agent now. Yep. And they're all doing the same stuff. They're all copying each other. Yep. So why not step out of the box and do something cool? Whether it's, I don't know, wrapping a car and showing up at an event and just telling people, or just stop selling. That's the main thing. Everyone's trying to sell always. Stop selling. Take a step back. Have a conversation with someone. Like, what's going on? What brings you to Niagara? What brings you to St. Catharines? Like, talk to them. See what they're actually here for versus, oh, here's my business card. Contact me. Everyone does that. And people hate to be sold. Like, I get phone calls all the time saying, oh, let's buy Bell, Rogers, this, that. I'm not interested. But if you have a conversation with me, I'm more prone to wanting to work with you in the future because you haven't tried to sell. It's not always transactional.
That's right.
Give a fuck about the client. Give a fuck about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And care about them. And going back to what you're saying about, well, what can we do to promote ourselves? I think you just got to be out of the box. Like, if you got to also have that will to want to do something crazy, because I know a lot of realtors, they want to do things that are crazy, but they're kind of very shy or, introverted, and they don't know, oh, I don't want to push the boundaries. I don't want to, but I have so many clients and friends that they'll go the funny angle from it and they'll try to make people laugh, or they'll go to the real angle. They'll try to go like an angle where people don't. And I think if you can find something that works for you and it makes sense, I think that's when you'll be the most successful.
I agree. And you know what, actually, something that's even powerful too, is like when you said like wrap the car, those types of ideas where, again, it's like a branding piece that you can leave with somebody, whether it's in their memory or physical. Exactly. So like when I met Nick, first time I met him, and now it's an inside joke because the guy fucking keeps giving me boxes with hats in them. But you know, the first time I met him, he gave me a box, and the box was not like the flimsy box. It was like a nice, you know, probably a fairly expensive box, and it had a hat.
He's large. Nick's large.
Yeah,
Nick is a large guy.
that's right. And it was like propped up with a nice foam thing, and I've always remembered that. Whether I wore the hat, the one hat I wore all the time, and every time I would go out, it'd be like, "Oh, hey, I went to one of his events," and everybody thought I worked there.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, can you point me to the bathroom?" I'm like, "I don't fucking work here."
Yeah.
But you know, it's that branding message that you leave with somebody that, because in my line of work, all of my particular business is all referrals, whether it be from agent to agents or past clients. And what I think is really cool is you're coming up with a branding or advertising strategy that's directly to the people in your own network. So it's kind of interesting. So, I mean, like if I had a car, I mean, I do have a car, but I mean, if I had a car wrapped and I showed up to one of our events and just kind of, you know what I mean? Just tried to further enforce that. So
you want to make sure your brand's in sync. So if you're doing all these, you want to make sure your car, your business card, if you have merch that you're wearing. And the one thing that I always like to do for clients is, if I'm going to a meeting, I'll always try to bring something for them. And it's more like a tactic where it's like, I always leave you with something so you always remember me versus always taking. Yeah. It's always everyone wants to take. Why don't you give for once, and that'll last with them, whether it's taking a cigar for them, whether it's taking them a coffee or juice or whatever the case is, that'll stay with them. And it doesn't cost you much, but it's that memory that, okay, you know what, every time he comes, he never comes empty-handed.
That's right.
And that's what people like, and they like to be treated, everyone likes to be treated well, and they want to feel great. So make them feel great. What is it going to take from you? And that's what's going to make you stand out compared to your competitors.
So I've got a question for you.
Sure.
And I don't know if you want to tell me or not, but what is kind of like the largest, maybe costly or expensive or however you want to say, like what was like the biggest ad campaign you've ever worked on?
Biggest ad campaign.
Maybe one that got the most attention.
So the biggest one would have been a big music festival we did last year. Their ad spend was well over the six figures for just a month.
For a month.
Yeah. So that was up there. Now, biggest campaign that's made a dent. We've done tons in the city. Yeah. We've done one with a restaurant client that I have where we offered Kyle Lowry free chicken for life if he stayed with the Raptors. And it made massive dent. Every news outlet picked it up.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Everyone was talking about it. And then just recently, last year, we did another one where we said, I think it was one of the Leafs. I think we said, if the Leafs win the cup, we'll give the whole team free chicken. And we were getting messages everywhere. And we were giving away free chicken at the Dundas Square. Yeah. Sandwiches, like chicken legs, everything. And we were getting like Google reviews saying, "Oh well, you get good PR, you get bad PR." People were saying like, "Oh well, if you have all this money, why don't you help the homeless?" And it's like, well, we do, but at the same time, like we're just doing this to have fun with it. So we've gotten a lot of traction in that sense as well. We've done, we did actually a funny campaign for a real estate agent where he went that angle of saying like, we're your shorty or like your girlfriend's like local realtor, and like, it picked up so much traction that Uria had to get involved. The brokerage had to tell him to take it down, and it was like a whole thing. So we've done like cool campaigns in the past, and we like to push boundaries. Or like when there was that Tinder swindler guy, we did a campaign with that. So we're always on top of like these trends, and we just try to make cool things, funny things happen. And we're not your typical traditional advertising agency where it's like these 60-year-old guys who are sitting down and just thinking about, oh no, this is not right. Well, we like to have fun with it. So
So okay. So then who helped come up with that plan? So you're not only doing the advertising, but for example, this restaurant was also handing out chicken.
So the creative side comes with ourselves and like our team. Like we have a couple creatives on the team, and a lot of times like I'll be driving and I just think of an idea and I'll shoot them a text. I'm like, listen, like what do you think of this? And we'll go back and forth. So we like to get creative with it. We honestly prefer more just getting involved with the creativity side just because we know what works. Yeah. But we'll get clients that say, no, like we want to handle the creativity, leave it to us, and see like what works and what doesn't. And they'll kind of realize, okay, you know what, maybe we should have let you do it just because you know what you're doing. And we're just thinking what works based off of like what we saw this individual do or this individual do. So the creativity side we love to do, and that's something that we're really good at. And we just know what works, and we just keep it going, keep it moving. So now let's talk about the side
well, I wouldn't call it a side project. It's like your new thing.
Yeah. So I'm also co-founders and partners in a company called Crop. It's Crop Farming Technologies. It's actually a tech company that we specialize in microgreens. Funny enough, I was at the farm yesterday. We're building a new farm in Uxbridge.
Nice.
So it's a vertical farming, so hydroponics and aeroponics.
Yep.
Got into that space just with a couple like friends that we grew up with, and I've always had a passion for food and obviously trying to be a chef. So it kind of full circle worked around, and we got some clients in the city, so we're slowly building that up, but it's fairly new and bringing that marketing and sales aspect from ads world into that as well. So,
well, that's what I was thinking. Cause I mean, you know, I looked at, you don't have any posts yet, but you got, you know, so
there's a reason behind it. It's like kind of keeping it very hush hush and so, yeah.
But I mean, if you think about it, having somebody with your expertise, I mean, theoretically, you could go out and kind of, you know, I wouldn't say start any business you want, but you can take that next business venture and just kind of 10x it by using all of your knowledge and your contacts.
And I get them all the time where I get people messaging me saying, hey, like, come be a partner of this. And it's like, there's certain things I'll say yes to just because it's something that I believe in and I'm passionate about. But if it's something that I have no passion for, I'm not just going to come do it just for the sake of making money. But because I've dealt with so many businesses over the past years, I can tell you what works in this industry, what works in this industry. And like you said, like it's easier for me to do it than versus someone who is, I don't know, just a 9-to-5 sales guy who just all of a sudden now wants to go open up a restaurant. Like I've dealt with so much different industries that I can tell you, okay, this is what works, this is what works, this works. I might not be the best at it, but I still am a little bit more ahead than someone just going fresh into it. So,
So, and then, so you started in radio, something that I've always liked to do. You know, actually, Chorus has been trying to her name's Melissa. She's amazing. She's a great salesperson.
Okay.
She's been trying to we've done some like digital advertising with them in the past, and you know, an opportunity.
Chorus has a very strong digital network.
Yes.
So I work with Chorus as well. They're one of our partners.
Yep.
So I have some friends at Chorus as well. They have a really, really strong network. A lot of these radio stations over the past, I guess, 4 or 5 years now, they've shifted more into the digital space just because a lot of people think radio's dead.
Yeah.
There's an argument on both sides.
Well, what I was going to say was, like, they have these really cool, which growing up I didn't know was a thing, but it's like they have almost like a paid advertising show. So you can do what we're doing right now, but on the radio. And I thought that was so cool. She approached me, and we weren't in the right, I couldn't commit to it.
For sure.
Right? But what a cool and powerful way, just based on what you're saying, to not be selling directly. You're just talking, having a conversation.
Yeah. Best way.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that kind of something that you might mix in for a client or something, you know?
So I've had clients who have showed interest for that. That's not something I can necessarily, I guess, sell, but it's obviously making the connection and or putting them in touch with who it is. And like I said, it's not always about transactional. If I can just make a connection, I won't try to sell them. I'll just be like, listen, Andrew, meet so-and-so. Here you go, whatever. And then I'll try to sell ad space on your show to the next client. So it always comes back full circle. But everyone thinks radio is kind of dying down. Everyone has to realize radio is the one thing that's free in your car. You're not paying for it. So
that's right.
The record came in, radio was around, tape came in, radio was around, CD came in, radio was around, streaming's here, radio's still around.
Radio's still around.
A lot of people don't realize the ratings for certain radio stations are so high because you'll have fan bases listening, and you'd be surprised. Like we've done like small little like marketing stunts on like certain stations where there's an announcer, he'll literally, like he did this with Nick Regina, funny enough, on Z103. Like, we're looking for Nick Regina, and if you ask Nick, he was like, my phone was blowing up. Everyone's messaging me saying, yo, where are you? Like, Hammer's looking for you. Like, what's going on? So radio still works. It's just you got to do it in the right way, and you gotta have the right message. Just with everything, everything works. It's just you have to have the right message and make sure it works.
Well, I agree because I like, if I don't have a podcast on, I only listen to Talk 640. I don't know why. I like listening to the news. I don't even live in Toronto, but I like listening to everything about Toronto. Yeah. And so are you do you help clients kind of expand away, maybe provincially, nationally, or internationally?
Yeah, of course. Depending on what their goals are. We're not just, so when it comes to advertising, we're not just stuck on Canada. We can pretty much advertise anywhere. So anywhere that there's a billboard, radio station, cinema, we have different partners that have different access to obviously other parts of the world. We can get them on. So if something makes sense for them in, let's say, Dubai, for example, we can do that for them. And we work with clients where they're based out of Toronto, but they're opening up a division in, let's say, Abu Dhabi or wherever the case is, and we can do stuff for them. So when it says Ads World, it's literally Ads World anywhere in the world. So we can do it. Obviously, it's easier to do certain things locally just because of timing and we're physically here. But I think one of the biggest struggles we have is when a client's looking at, let's say, advertising in a market that we don't speak that language, and they don't obviously speak our language. It's a little difficult going back and forth, so it takes a little bit longer, but everything's possible. We can do it.
Nice.
So
what do you see, for yourself and your company, like in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, do you want to take this thing bigger? Do you want to move shift focus into something else? I mean,
so definitely, the goal is to obviously grow it and build the team and add more people to the team. And with the trends that the business is going, it's going to go more digital focused, especially even with the out of home stuff. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to convince our clients and obviously educate them to realize what digital is and trying to push them to that digital route, because everything that's traditional, like the traditional billboards, are all going to be gone, and they're already slowly coming down just because of bylaws and governments or whatever it is. So trying to convince these guys that have been doing the traditional static, or let's say traditional radio or whatever the case is, and so, okay, this is the new wave and this is the new trend, how to get them on board and explain to them. And I think that's the most key important thing, is educating them, because a lot of people just want to sell it, and you have to educate them and have to have them understand, or else it's not going to work and the client's just not going to do anything.
Right. So I mean, I think the point is no matter where the direction of, advertising and marketing goes, whether all the billboards get taken down, there's always going to be something to replace it from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
But you can't go. You can. I have some realtors that do amazing and they don't even have an Instagram account.
Yeah.
But, eventually, like, most of them end up getting on at some point, right? So
they get on it. It's like even our old family realtor, he's been in the business for 40 years. He doesn't even have a website. And it's just his email and his business card from his pictures from back in the 80s. And it still works for him and he's killing it. But imagine if he was online, how much more business he would get. But it's like a hit or miss. It's either you get on at the right time or it's a little too late now and you're playing catch up because everyone else is doing something and now you're trying to play with trends that these guys originally are the ones starting it. So I think, I don't know, if you can get onto social media, if you can get to advertising and building your brand, I think building your brand is the most important part. My biggest pet peeve with realtors is, and I'm going to say this, is when they have an email, but it's not linked to nothing. It's, let's say, andrewabc@gmail.com. Spend the $6, buy the email, so it's professional. That's it. And I rip them all the time. Like, if you watch my Instagram stories, I'll rip on realtors all the time, where I'm like, listen, spend $6, just get the email. Make it whatever it is, that team or whatever the brokerage is or whatever it is, and just pay for it. It makes it more professional.
The thing is, that's worse, is that the brokerages provide you. Like, you could still do at Home Life or at Royal LePage.
And they don't want to use it. They'd rather put their full name at gmail.com.
I don't get it. Maybe it's because when I first started with Revel, it was a small brokerage. And I came from Royal LePage, where we used Gmail. And then we went to Revel, and we used, like, I don't know. Do you remember, like, Firefox?
Oh, yeah.
It looked like that.
Yeah.
It was like this old, like, Windows 95 kind of interface.
Yeah, I know.
And then they switched to Gmail, like, a few months after I came over. But that's just, anyways.
But at least it's like Andrew at, Revel. Sure.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
But when it's like Andrew@gmail.com, it's like, you work for gmail.com.
Yeah.
So it just shows that you don't care, or, like, I don't know. It's just, there's so much we can go back and forth with, or like even their Instagram. It's so hard to figure out who they are because it's like ._47 at this. It's like, make it easy for people. And be professional.
And just as you're consistent in your marketing, and it's like the same that I talk about on social media. It's like, if I go to your profile and, you might have a house down here, but, you're walking your dog or you're doing this or you're fishing or whatever. I'm like, if you're a professional realtor, like, just, I'm not seeing that, and
there's a difference between like being a realtor and then it happens that you're on a dog walk or whatever and you're relaying it back to real estate. Because at the end of the day, you're a human being. You're not real estate 24/7. Like, you have a life aside from real estate. Yeah. But like, you have passions, you have hobbies, but there's guys that are girls or whatever, they post certain things and it's like, what are you doing? Like,
well, I think that's for any service too.
For any service that's in a professional state, or even the way you dress. Like, if you're pulling up to a listing, sweatpants and a t-shirt, like, obviously the way you're presenting yourself is important too. So I can go on about realtors and the things that they do all the time, but
so could I. But.
Yeah.
So what do you think about magazines?
Depending on what the magazine is, I think they can be effective and resourceful. But if it's just a magazine, just for the sake of doing a magazine, I don't think it's.
Yeah. Well, like where are magazines even going?
Yeah.
These days, like physically, like where
there's a couple magazines that are a little bit more premium. Like there's a couple home building ones that are good, or like a couple of these higher automotive ones, like Autostrada. It's a really good one.
Yep.
Those ones I actually see like they're being distributed. People actually read them. It's like they're going places just because of the fan base it has behind it. But the ones that you can just grab at like the grocery store for free, like what do you really like? It doesn't work.
Well, because I mean,
everything's online now too. So if someone really wants to go, they can just Google it. So
well, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion on that too, just because, we've invested, like one of the magazines we did was like 10 grand, and that was like the most.
They're pricey.
That's the most I've ever spent on an ad campaign, and it was supposed to be like an editorial.
Okay.
Because it was. I was on the phone with the person for like 2 hours writing the editorial, and then like it just came. It's like it's.
Where was this getting distributed?
Well, apparently to like the top 1%. Everywhere.
Okay. But is there a list that backs this, or is it kind of just like an Excel sheet with, oh yeah, this is where it's going?
No, it was very, very professional. The whole company was professional. My experience was great. The magazine was like amazing. You can even buy. They gave you one with your purchase, of course. It was a hardcover. Yeah. It was really big. It felt great. But like then it said sponsored content on it. I'm like, fuck.
That's
like,
not, that
like,
gives it away right away.
I just would have went to Facebook.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I feel like the magazines now, it's the
and
only
that's
people in the
$10,000 for one edition, right? Or for one, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, the issue with it was that everything was ads. They did it very well and they hit it very well, but it's people know now.
Yeah.
So, okay. Last kind of wrap up here. Let's just say you've got a client that's coming to you, and maybe their business is kind of brand new. Okay. Where do they start with Ads World?
So is this real estate agent or
Anybody.
Any business? So first things first, obviously making sure you have a logo, making sure you have all the essentials, like a website, business cards, whatever the case is. You want to have that foundation ready, and then depending on what the budget is, kind of going in the route of, okay, you know what, let's run some ads on digital, let's run some ads here. So I won't start them off right away with the billboards and everything, because I want to make sure they have a foundation and they're building something, and down the line it might make sense, but you always want to make sure that they have a website, they have a logo, they have all the essentials that they need, and then from there we can just kind of add on to, okay, you know, this makes sense, or this makes sense, or make sure they have Instagram or Google listing, and these are all the things that I always go through with a client, and at the end of it they're like, well, how can we work together? I'm like, well, this is how we're going to start. Yeah. Because this is all the stuff that you need to work. Well, but I didn't pay you. Well, it's not about that. Yeah. It's about you having all this. And then down the line, when you're more established, we can look into everything else. So it's almost like a consultant role. You're consulting them into starting them off on how it's supposed to be done. And then down the line, everything will kind of fall into place and the ball will get rolling. So,
because that's what I got from you by just checking you out and listening to you, and seeing some of your work, that it seems like it's so customized that it would have to be on a consultation basis.
Like there's no set package. Like what your goals are and what you're trying to do is different than what this next client wants to do. So I can never send you what they're doing to you or vice versa. And this is another obstacle. It's like where people just, send me a package. Well, there's no package. Well, we got to figure out what you need, and we'll build a custom package for you. Yeah. Because what you might need is maybe a little bit less in depth than what the next person might need, because you might have all these foundations and fundamentals built versus a lot of people might not. So everything's customizable. There's no set pricing because everyone's different.
That's right.
So
that's what I was going to say. There's no, somebody's like, I got a budget of 5,000. I got a budget of 50,000. There's no standard price for something like that because it's all based on somebody's goals.
Yeah. And someone's budget of 50,000, sure, that's great, but they might not be ready to spend 50,000 because they don't have anything else. But someone might have a $10,000 budget, but they're ready to spend it. So again, going and finding what they need and doing a needs analysis and saying, okay, this is what it is. That's what's going to help them. And
maybe you bring them so much attention they don't even have the systems to process.
So exactly, yeah. So there's a lot that you need to do. It's not just about selling just some billboards or some radio space, and there's some more to it. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, that's about it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Where can everybody find you, Nick?
You can find us online, adsworld.ca, adsworld. And then once you search that, you'll find me there too. So I'm there.
So I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very honest person. I tried, like, when I meet somebody, I try to Google their name. Usually how to pronounce it first.
Yeah.
Right? I couldn't find your pronunciation.
Yeah,
your pronunciation, by the way.
I know.
There's no YouTube pronunciations for your last name. But I just, as soon as I just typed in your last name, and all, like, it was
Everything
just you.
pops up. Yeah.
There's like no other
It's just
in the world with your last
Yeah.
name.
So the organic SEO is working. So
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, thanks, buddy. I really
so much,
appreciate
man.
you coming
Appreciate
on.
it. Thank
So
you.
if you like this episode, please share it with your friends. Don't forget to write us a review. Give us that 5 stars. It will help other entrepreneurs see and hear this podcast. And then if you're on YouTube, of course, like, comment, subscribe, and all that other crap. Thank you very much.